Let me start from saying, how did you even come about the 5 love languages?
It was a process. I'll never forget the first time it dawned on me that what makes one person feel loved doesn't make another person feel loved. A couple came in. I never met them. I found out they'd been married to each other for 30 years. And the wife sat down and she said, let me tell you a little bit about us. She said, we don't argue. We don't believe in arguing. We don't have any money problems. And she went on with 2 or 3 more positive things, and I was beginning to wonder, did they come in to tell me what a good marriage they have? But then she started crying. And she said, the problem is, I just don't feel any love coming from him. We're like roommates, living in the same house. He does his thing, I do my thing. There's nothing going on between us. And I just feel empty inside. And I don't know how long I can go on like this. Well, I looked over at her husband, and he said, I don't understand her. I do everything I can to show her that I love her. And she sits there and tells you what she's been telling me. She doesn't feel loved. I don't know what I could do more than I'm doing. I said, well, what do you do to share your love with her? He said, well, I get home from work before she does. I start the evening meal. Sometimes I have it ready when she gets home. If not, she'll help me. After we eat, I wash the dishes every night. On Thursday, I vacuum the floors. On Saturday, I wash the car, I mow the grass, I help her with the laundry, and he went on, and I was beginning to wonder, what does this woman do? It sounded to me like he was doing everything.
Yeah.
And I looked back at her, and she started crying again. And she said, he's right. He's a hard-working man. But we don't ever talk. We haven't talked in 20 years. He's always mowing the grass, washing the dishes, vacuuming the floors. And I realized here was a sincere husband who was doing everything he knew to do to show his wife that he loves her, and a wife who did not get it emotionally. And after that, I heard similar stories over and over. And I knew there had to be a pattern to it, but I had no idea what it was. So eventually I took time to sit down and read several years of notes that I made when I was counseling and asked myself the question, when someone said in my office, I feel like my spouse doesn't love me, what did they want? What were they complaining about? And their answers fell into 5 categories. And I later called them the 5 love languages. And I started using that in my counseling. If you want her to feel loved, you've got to learn to speak her love language. If you want him to feel loved, you've got to learn to speak his language. And I would help them discover each other's language, challenge them to go home and try it. And sometimes they would come back their next session and say, Gary, this is beginning to change things. It's amazing. It's different now. And then I started teaching it as a concept into small groups, and the same thing would happen. And it was at least 5 years later that I thought, if I could put this concept in a book and write it in the language of the common person, maybe I could help a lot of people that I would never have time to see in my office. That's what motivated me to write the book, and that's where it came from.
Whoa.
Welcome to my YouTube channel. Get ready for transformation as we dive into God's Word. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
So how old is the book?
It came out in 1992.
So that is how old now? This is 2004.
32 years.
Whoa.
32 years.
And it's still making an impact.
Yeah. For many, many, many years, it sold more every year than it did before the year before, which doesn't happen to books.
Yes.
That hadn't been true the last couple of years, I think, but it's still selling a lot.
How many copies has it sold?
Well, over 20 million copies, and published in over 50 languages around the world. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. It amazes me.
Yes. How teach us how to write a best-selling book?
Well, you know, people have asked me, how do I account for that? And I say, well, from my perspective, the short answer is God. And the long answer is God. I said, I could not have made that happen if I wanted to make that happen. It's just been a God thing. I think what has happened on the human level is couples read it, the lights come on. They realize how they've been missing each other emotionally. And they take the quiz and they learn each other's language and they try speaking it. And the love tank begins to fill up. And then they want their brother and his wife to read it, and their sister and her husband. So it's really gone word of mouth all over the world.
Wow. Let's examine what are the 5 love languages, you know, itself. Just tell us a bit about.
Well, one of them is words of affirmation, using words to affirm the other person. You look nice in that outfit. I really appreciate what you did. You know, one of the things I like about you is just looking for things you can affirm the other person for. You know, there's an ancient Hebrew proverb that says life and death is in the power of the tongue. We can kill people by the way we talk to them. And we can kill relationships by the way we talk to people. We can give them life. So affirming words. And then acts of service, doing something for the person that you know they would like for you to do. That's what the gentleman was doing that I just talked about. He was washing dishes, vacuuming floors, washing the car. He was doing acts of service. So that is a way. And you know, there's an old saying that says, actions speak louder than words. And for people, if this is their language, that's true. It's not true for everyone, but it's true. If this is their language, actions will speak louder than words. And then there's gifts. It's universal to give gifts. That's an expression of love. As I mentioned in the last time we were together, I did an undergrad and a master's degree in cultural anthropology, studying other cultures and how they're organized. We've never found a culture where gift giving is not an expression of love. And the gifts don't have to be expensive. We've always said it's the thought that counts. And so, you know, I've said to guys, if your wife's language is gifts and she likes flowers, you can get free flowers in the spring and summer.
Yeah.
Go out in your backyard and pick them. That's like your kids do. So there's gifts. And then there's quality time. Giving the person your undivided attention. I do not mean sitting on the couch watching television together. Someone else is your attention. TV is off. Computer is down. We're not answering our phone. We're giving each other our full attention. And it doesn't have to always be sitting down. We can be walking down the road and talking to each other, going out to eat and talking, assuming you talk. We've all seen people in the restaurant sitting across with they got their phones out, you know. But quality time. And again, sometimes it's not so much talking as it is doing something with them that they want you to do. Maybe your wife wants you to help her plant a flower garden. And you give 2 hours out there, both of you working on the flower garden. Now, that's quality time, 2 hours of your time doing something with her that she likes, you know. And then number 5 is physical touch. We've long known the emotional power of physical touch. That's why we pick up babies, hold them and kiss them and cuddle them. Long before the baby understands the meaning of the word love, the baby feels love by touch. So in marriage, that would be such things as holding hands and kissing and embracing and the whole sexual part of marriage, and arm around the shoulder, or driving down the road, you put your hand on their leg, or sitting around the house and they walk by and you trip them. I'm kidding on the last one. Don't trip your spouse, okay? But the basic concept is that out of those 5, each of us has what I call a primary love language. One of these speaks more deeply to us emotionally than the other 4. Now, we're not going to turn away any one of them. Any one of them is fine. But if we don't receive love in our primary language, we will not feel loved, even though the person's speaking some of the other languages. And so that's why it's so important to learn each other's primary love language and then choose to speak it.
But you mentioned something as well in your book that you've hardly seen couples that have the same love language. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I think it's not often that a couple who has the same love language will marry each other. Remember the old saying, opposites attract? I think there's some truth to that. Logically, you might think that if we have the same love language, it would be easier because it's easy to speak your own language, and that makes sense. But I've never been dogmatic to say that that's really true because there's so many other dynamics in a marriage relationship. So it's not a matter, if you're single, of trying to find somebody that you have the same love language as. That's not the issue. It's a lot of other things. I deal with those things in a book I wrote, Things I Wish I'd Known Before We Got Married. 12 things I know now, I wish I'd known then. So those are the things you need to be looking at and considering before you get married. Not necessarily that the person have the same love language, because we can learn to speak any of these languages. And if your spouse has a different language, great, you can learn how to speak it. It's a matter of choosing to learn how to speak it.
Do love languages change?
I'm often asked that question. I think basically the love language tends to stay with us for a lifetime. But having said that, yes, I think there are seasons of life in which another love language may jump to the top. For example, a mother who has 2 preschool children, acts of service may not be her primary love language, but during those years, it's going to jump to the top. And I think there are circumstances where another love language may be more important. For example, let's say you hear your partner on the phone, and they hang up the phone and they start crying. And they say, I just got word that my brother died or my mother died. And they're just weeping. Physical touch may not be their primary language, but at that situation, putting your arms around them and holding them while they cry is probably the most powerful thing you could do for them. And that's why I sometimes encourage couples, what about every 2 or 3 weeks you just say to each other, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much love do you feel coming from me? And if they say less than 10, you say, well, this week, what would be the most important thing I could do or say to you? Well, it may not be their love language every week. It may be something else because certain things are happening in their life and another thing would be more important, So I think it does tend to stay with us throughout a lifetime with those exceptions.
Okay. Apart from taking the quiz, now I know you have a quiz that people can take to know their love language, but you gave a few hints in your book how you can know your own love language and how you can know your spouse's love language.
I think there's 3 simple things you can do that you can pretty well figure out your love language or someone else's language. Number 1 is observe their behavior. How do they typically relate to other people? If the other person, for example, is always giving people gifts, that's a clue that that's what they want to receive. Because typically, we speak the language we want to receive. If they're always giving words of affirmation to people, or if you're always giving words of affirmation to people, encouraging words, that's a clue that that's your language. So observe your behavior, observe their behavior. Secondly, what do they complain about most often? And what do you complain about most often? The complaint often reveals the love language. For example, if you're saying, let's say your partner goes on a trip and they come back home and you say, you didn't bring me anything? They're telling you, gifts is my language. Why didn't you bring me something? I had a mother say to me some time ago, she said, last week, my 6-year-old son said to me, we don't ever go to the park anymore since the baby came. Whoa! Before the baby came, he had his mother's full attention at the park, quality time. And now he's missing it. He's complaining about it. So anything you complain about is a clue to what your language is. Anything the other person complains about is a clue to their love language. And then the third thing is, what do they request most often? For example, my daughter, most commonly when she was a teenager, most common request she had was, Dad, can we take a walk after dinner? She's asking me for quality time. So what do you ask for most often of your partner, or the other person? And then what they ask for? You put those 3 things together, you can pretty well figure out your love language and the other person's love language.
Wow, that is so profound. That is so profound.
I believe you have been blessed by this message. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. God bless you.